staff meeting of the Hamilton County Board of Commissioners, December the 5th, 2023. Ask for the dais to introduce themselves.
Christy Rischel, Assistant Clerk.
Leslie Hervey, Clerk to the Board.
Stephanie Summerall, Dumas Commissioner.
Good afternoon. I'm County Commissioner Denise Treehouse.
Jeff Aludo, County Administrator.
Charlie Annis, Prosecutor's Office.
And I'm Hamilton County Commissioner Alicia Reese, President of the Board. Okay, today is our hearing, our second hearing for the Hamilton County budget process. We have another hearing on, I think, Monday? Is it Monday? Yep, Monday, the 11th. No, Tuesday, the 12th. Okay. Tuesday, the 12th, we'll be in Silverton, Ohio. It'll be an evening session, so hopefully everyone will come on out and express yourself, okay? All right, with that, we are in the public hearing of our budget that's been presented to us by the administrator. Mr. Ludo, do you want to give a brief overview?
I will, Madam President, and I've got a brief PowerPoint. I'm going to make it even briefer than the first meeting. But again, just for those folks who may be watching at home, the way the process works is we're having a hearing on the recommended budget for the county for 2024. The administration recommends a budget to the board in the fall. The board then deliberates that budget and ultimately passes a version of that budget or a version of a budget, typically in late in the year. Right now, we've got that scheduled for board consideration on December the 14th. The budget. So if someone's watching at home, the budget you are going to be seeing presented will likely change because the commission is now in the process of looking at the recommendation and potentially tailoring it to match their own policy priorities. So with that, I'm going to walk through a very brief presentation here. Christy, if we could pull that up. So just, and I'm going to hit the high points of the recommended budget. The recommended budget is, as recommended, is at $1.3 billion for all of the county's funds. The county's general fund budget is recommended at $394.5 million. The county general fund is essentially the primary checkbook, if you will, of the county that supports most general operations. The recommended balancing approach. We did, as the board is aware, when we first began this process, we had roughly a $40 million gap between what was being requested from departments and what we were projecting in revenues for next year. That's much higher than we have seen in the past couple of years. But we closed that gap with a combination of reductions to those departmental requests as well as modest program reductions. Just a little bit about the all funds budget and what it contains. The primary fund in the all funds budget is the general fund, and then there are a lot of other funds that make up the general fund, including funding of job and family services, all of our levy funds, the engineers funds, occupancy tax, 911, environmental funds like our water and solid waste management district, air quality funds, etc. The recommended, or I'm sorry, the sources for the general fund for folks who are interested in where how the government is actually funded in the general fund. The primary source of funding is the sales tax. The next highest is property tax. So we receive roughly $155.6 million. We're projecting roughly $155.6 million next year in property tax revenues, as well as $53.2 million in sales tax revenues and $53.2 million in property tax revenues. In terms of recommended uses, just important to note that over 70% of the county's general fund budget goes towards public safety and judicial functions. So for those, we have a lot of programs, a lot of really good things that the county does that get a lot of notoriety and attention, and sometimes folks may hear about those programs and think that that's proportionately where a lot of money is going, but actually over 70% of our general fund budget goes directly to public safety and judicial functions. In terms of our reserve, we always look at reserve as a metric of financial health for the county. We are projecting to end 2024 with a reserve of approximately 59.2 million. That is a reserve level of just below 15%, roughly 14.4%. This is the reserve. Think of that as the remaining cash that the county has to insulate against major financial shocks, to provide for cash flow, for making payroll, for financing capital projects, for advancing different things that the board wants done, et cetera. The Government Finance Officers Association recommends 2 months operating expenses, which for us would be a 16.7% reserve. As our budget climbs in a nominal dollar amount, I'm less concerned about this dropping slightly below 15%, but it is something that we continually want to track and look for. In terms of the policy priorities, the budget covers items such as public safety, economic and community development, social services, environment and public infrastructure, and all the different things that we need to do to operate an effective government. I'm just going to walk through a couple of these. So in terms of public safety, the budget supports the operations of the Sheriff's Office, 911, the Coroner's Office and Crime Lab, again, all of the courts, all of the drug treatment and recovery courts, as well as technology initiatives within the Sheriff's Office. From an economic development perspective, the budget fund, the board has been very intentional about trying to make sure that we are really working with our surrounding communities to help fund and promote the development, revitalization of our first-ring suburban communities. So the economic development grant programs that we have, where we're working with our first-ring suburban communities, the site readiness projects that we have, all of our affordable housing work, our parking operations, things like broadband and Wi-Fi infrastructure, investment in bike trails. We're currently doing a study on looking at youth sports. All of those things funded out of economic development. Social services, this is where we fund a lot of the programs that go to help make sure that nobody in this community is left behind, and that we are providing services to people in need in this community. So everything from our 513 relief program, our Inspire Beyond Your Imagination program, our senior home repair program, as well as things like the project to move the gun range in Evendale, the Cincinnati Police Department gun range in Evendale, to a Hamilton County Regional Safety Complex in Colerain Township is included in this aspect of the budget, in addition to all of our addiction response and One Ohio grants. The county does a lot to support environment and infrastructure. This fund or this area of the budget includes things like all of the dollars used by the engineer to maintain roads and bridges and sidewalks in the community, all of our recycling efforts through the Solid Waste Management District, our air quality work in the Department of Environmental Services, as well as our oversight of the Metropolitan Sewer District. And finally, the budget also supports all of the less public things that aren't as publicly noticed, but all the things necessary to promote a solid operations in county government. Everything from our continued talent attraction and retention initiatives through human resources. This is where you would find our salary adjustments, and I've proposed a 3.5% salary adjustment for 2024, all of our continuous improvement initiatives, all of our diversity and inclusion initiatives as well, including continuing progress on the disparity study that the board enacted into policy earlier this year. There's always risks with budgets. This particular budget, we've identified economic growth. An economic slowdown in economic growth would have impacts in particular on our sales tax production, inflation on both wages and capital projects primarily are a source of risk for this budget. I mentioned wage pressures. Ensuring that, as I said earlier, we pulled back on departmental requests significantly in this budget. Now, working with those departments to make sure that they stay within budget is something that we have to do to avoid the risk of having departments budgets creep out of where they were set for 2024, which is one of the surefire ways to make sure or to lead to a budget imbalance. There's also some state action that is pending in terms of discussions about increasing the OPERS employer contributions, which could have a multi-million-dollar impact on the general fund budget. There is legislation at the state that would reassess how property taxes are imposed at the local level, and what years are used to set property taxes, which would have the goal or which would have the result of putting some downward pressure on property tax collections in any one year, as well as things like the reimbursement levels that are set for the public defender's office. Typically, the county and organizations like CCAO have pushed for 100% reimbursement of public defender expenditures, as that's really a state responsibility. We have reached that point only rarely, and we are seeing more of around an 80 to 85% reimbursement rate in recent times. And so to the degree that fluctuates lower, it'll be an increased strain on the general fund budget. Our recommended budget is posted at hamiltoncounty.ohio.gov/budget. Again, as Commissioner Reese, as you indicated, we have a final budget hearing coming up on December the 12th at 6 p.m. in Silverton. I have provided the board with a memorandum outlining various policy considerations that we've heard from the board and various communications and policy documents for the board's consideration as we discuss this publicly and as board offices work to understand where we might be going with a final budget. Happy to answer any questions today, Commissioner, if I can, or if there are things that we need to get back with the board on, happy to do that between now and the next budget hearing. With that, Madam President, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. I first want to ask, is there anybody in the audience here that'd like to speak about the budget? Is there anyone on Zoom? Do we have anybody on Zoom? Not at this time. Okay. I'd like to open it up to my colleagues. Vice President Driehaus, do you have any comments or questions at this time?
I really don't. Thank you, Jeff, for the presentation. This is a work in progress, and I'm anxious to finish it out, but we're still working on some items amongst the three offices, and so I'm anxious to get back to the table and talk about our priorities and come up with a final version.
Great. Commissioner Dumas, any comments or questions?
Just a general comment. I'm glad that we're able to continue our policy priorities as a board currently in the draft budget, and also our initiatives have been incorporated, and that we really need to maintain a balanced budget, of course, and keep a decent reserve. So I'm happy about that. And we're also adding items in the budget that look toward the future. And as we look toward the future, we're looking at additional staffing, capital funding, and new services. I will say, and I bring it up every time, the performance-based wages of 3.5% is not accurate. And even if my colleagues agree with that, I'm asking that it be a 3% across the board for staff. But even if we can't come to agreement for that, I'm asking Jeff, when you present it again, if you would do the breakdown, because it's only a 1.5% COLA, and nowadays with inflation and everything else, if you could just break down what that 3.5% is, because it is not a 3.5%. It's performance. Some of it is, and some is COLA. So I'm asking my colleagues if they would consider across the board 3%. But that's all I have right now.
Thank you. I would just say that the budget, there has a lot of great things in this budget, but there are some things that need to be tweaked, and looking forward to us being able to do that. There is a list of things that each of us have presented, and hopefully we'll be able to go through those. I will say, for me, the budget as is, under the title Veterans, knowing what I know now, I cannot support moving forward with that particular section with the status quo of what we've done all the time, because obviously what we've been doing all the time has not worked. So I cannot, in good conscience, accept the veterans section, which calls for about the same amount that we've been doing. And what we've been doing is not, in my mind, acceptable. So I will be continuing to push, but that section has to be changed. At least I can't. I'd have to move for separation or something and pull that out. But I cannot go along to get along with that particular section in the particular budget that's being recommended at this time by the administration. So I wanted to be on record with that, so there's no surprises from, at least from me. And I do still believe I'm getting calls like crazy. Oh my God, I can't go anywhere. My phone is ringing off the hook. I can't even go to the grocery store. Veda was at the barber shop, and they had hemmed him up at the barber shop. I went to church. They hemmed me up. People saying that what was presented that came from a couple veterans that I presented last week, people don't understand why we didn't move forward with an ombudsman as a first step, in office as a first step, and a major event as a first step. And they're calling me like crazy. So I'm not giving up on that, but I cannot accept this budget as is with the veteran section when we already have the data that shows that only 500, maybe 1,000 veterans were served with that same budget, with 42,000 plus their families of veterans that are out here. So I just want to say that I cannot accept this particular veteran budget with an as-is of what we've been having and waiting and hoping and praying that the veteran services will change their mind. I don't think they're going to change their mind anytime soon. It doesn't prohibit the fight to try to get people on the board, but if you're going on the board as a minority, they do that a lot with different boards. Sometimes, it might be a board of 20 people, and then they have 2 minorities. Can't get anything done. I know we've got to continue to try to work that part, but I do think some action is needed, and this budget is not taking the action. So just wanted to put that out there as we move forward. I can't accept this budget as is with the veterans with the same amount we had years prior. Okay, no people are here to speak. You'd like to?
Yeah, I want to follow up on
Yes,
Commissioner
please.
Dumas's. So, Commissioner Dumas, you have mentioned this, the wage piece a couple of times, and I had asked the administration, I think you did the same, to get a financial analysis of what it would mean to have either the 3% across the board or 3.5 across the board, as opposed to what's been recommended by the administrator, to see if there's a cost difference there. So I just wanted to offer that. I too am interested in what you had to say related to the across the board versus the merit, but I don't know what the financial impact is yet. And so I guess we're all waiting for those numbers to come forward. So I appreciate you bringing it forward, though.
And I will have to say, initially, I kind of was the one that kind of really pushed on the side of, I guess I'm trying to look at both things. I want to have across the board, and I guess the financial analysis will allow us to see that. But when the people go beyond, there's got to be something we can do. And I've always had that, when you look at, you go to a restaurant and one person shows up and they're working the whole day, and the other person says, oh, it was raining today, I didn't show up. That person that showed up that day went beyond, and there's something to keep them going. How do we compensate that? We have really great employees, but we got some people that's outstanding, never missing a day, coming in, might come in past the time they're supposed to be there, come in early. If it's snowing outside, they still make it to work. It's bad weather, they're still here. I got to figure out something that we can do to honor those folks, but I understand we want to make sure, first of all, everybody getting a fair thing. But I would be upset if I went to, I've had that before. I go to work and the person getting the same amount I'm getting, and I'm working 10 times harder. So what it does is bring, we see that now in customer service. It brings everybody down to mediocrity. Well, why I got to do something? So-and-so, I'm gonna get paid the same way they getting paid. So I was just trying to figure out if it's something, this may not be the answer, but is there something where we reward our employees for doing great, but we gotta be honest. There's some people that's just extraordinary. And how do we, because then other people will say, I wanna be extraordinary, but if we just take it down with, girl, don't worry about it, we all gonna get the same thing. Well, now everybody coming in late, everybody taking their time. I ain't answering the phone because I'm getting paid the same thing this person getting paid. So just trying to figure out what is that. And I don't have the answer to it. I just wanted to put that out there. That's why I had asked the administrator to try to come up with something, and maybe this is not the right answer, but come up with something where the person is outstanding. They got to get a little bit more than the person that's just doing the basic minimum requirement. And I don't know how to do that. I'm not answering that today, but I just wanted to put that out there. That's the reason I had asked about it.
Commissioners, John and I were just talking. John may be able to shed some light initially right now on the cost question as it relates to the 3.5. So, and if not, we can get you some more information a little bit later.
And I apologize for not responding prior to this. The reason we didn't respond is that there is no difference. We budget 3.5%, whether it's COLA or performance-based. So it's still 3.5%, regardless of how we program those pieces of it. In practice, something that's more performance-based could potentially have some leftover appropriations more readily than a COLA-based adjustment. But in terms of budgetarily, it's just 3.5%.
So
one
you're
way or the other.
budgeting as though everyone will get the COLA and the merit-based?
That's correct.
Okay.
So everybody, regardless if you do a great job or
For
not,
the sake of budget, because we
for
don't,
the sake of budget.
right, because
But
we don't
then
know where.
we would determine the policy, I guess.
Right, or, yes.
Everybody shouldn't get a bonus
No,
if
no,
they ain't
but-
doing that.
Right.
Yeah,
We-
so
for the
but-
sake of budget, we don't know where the performance-based.
Right, so there's
pieces
no
would end
difference
up.
in whether we approach it with 100% COLA or something different, the budget doesn't change because you
That's correct.
budget it as if everybody's going to get the merit.
That's correct.
Okay, that's helpful.
Commissioner
Yeah,
Davis.
I just wanted to make a comment. We've been creative, not you, John, but we've been creative before in HR on how we can provide an incentive for staff. And I'm thinking, and I don't know technically if you can do it, like maybe an additional personal day or, or some more hours on vacation or, I mean, there's so many ways you can do it. But you said, I was thinking, John, if you're going by performance based, and if someone gets, and help me with this, gets 3.5%, and then in addition they get a performance based, seemed like it would be additional monies to make if it was across the board 3.5%.
No, I was just going to say, so the performance base is built into the 3.5. So as John said, I think the practical difference would be that if we did the 3.5 with a portion of that based on performance, there might be a little bit left over there because not everyone is going to get that amount, the full amount. Technically, there's other ways to do it where we've done it in the past where we would ensure that full amount were used. We've done it before where we give pools of dollars to departments and they can then prescribe an amount where someone could get more than 3.5% and someone's going to get less than 3.5, so that at the end of the day, the whole pot of money is used. So it just depends upon how we go about doing it.
Okay. And I don't know, but I'm comfortable with a 3% and leave the 0.5 to help with incentives for those who are doing better. I mean, it's much better than a 1.5%. So, okay.
Yeah, I don't know what the number is now. I got this idea for a couple workers. I don't want to get them in trouble, but they're hard workers. And if they were to leave, some things will, because they're carrying the weight. They're the ones here all the time. They're carrying the weight, staying late, and it's just, I get to hear a lot of the complaints. And at a time we're trying to keep the superstars, we definitely got to keep them. What I call them the old faithfuls, the people that's gonna be there. But they have been saying that, then they've got somebody else getting the same amount of money and they taking off. A lot of work show up, they, mysteriously disappear when the work show up. And we just got to do something. I know if I was in the private sector, they would get a bonus. If I was in the entrepreneurial world where I'm at, they would get it because I would want to hold on to that very good worker. But it's hard to hold on at any level. You could take McDonald's. If the people making the same amount that show up every day and then the other person show up every now and then, but they got the same amount, eventually that person every day going to look for something else. And now everything goes down to mediocrity. We're paying premium for mediocre performance, if you will, because we've taken everybody down. So I just wanted to say that that's how it kind of came about, and I was just kind of figuring out how could we do it. I don't think an extra day off will be enough for someone like this to stay. I think they're looking at, I need to be, give me something for what I'm doing. If I'm doing something extra and I'm always there for you, what do you have for me? And I don't have the answer, but that's why I gave it to Mr. Ludo to try to help me.
And commissioners, there are other things that can be done. So the way I've proposed it in this budget is to put more of the performance base on the base salary, where it'd be a smaller COLA, but then a higher performance base. If the board was more comfortable doing a higher COLA, Commissioner Reese, to your point, we have done in the past just pure one-time bonuses. So there could be something where we do a higher proportion of COLA, and then there is a higher level of one-time bonus that is allocated strictly on a performance basis. I think John and I were just talking about this a little bit yesterday. I think every 0.5% that the board would allocate is approximately $520,000. John, I think I got that number right. Is that what you recall as well?
That's the salary side only, yes.
Salary side only, right?
There are benefits associated depending on how it's awarded.
Exactly. So every percent salary only is roughly over $1 million. So if, for sake of example only, if the board did a 3% COLA, that would have roughly the impact that we were talking about in the budget right now, minus 0.5%. And then if you said we're going to do a 2.5% bonus on top of that, you're looking at roughly $2.5 million. I think if I'm doing my math correct in my head. So, but that would be one time and not on the base. So, again, there's a lot of different ways we can cut this, but I think what I'm hearing from the board is a desire to ensure that the workforce keeps up with inflation, but also a desire to ensure that high performers are rewarded. So we can continue to work on options for that and come back to the board with something.
Sounds good. Anybody else have anything to say?
I'm just more comfortable with a higher COLA. I just am. I'm not sure what the exact number needs to be, but I feel as though in order to retain the workforce, we need to do that. I'm also intrigued by the merit. I'm happy to think through that. It's just a matter of how much money we're spending doing all this stuff. So with if we were to say, hypothetically, that we were going to do a 3% COLA, and then we only have that half available for the incentive or the merit pay, for I have no idea. I heard you say it's $520,000 for the whole budget, but I have no idea what that might look like on somebody's paycheck. I mean, how much are we talking about here? It must be a pretty small amount. I know that the paychecks vary, but on average, what would you say would be the annual then merit raise for that employee if they got the merit raise at 0.5?
Just like some quick math.
Yeah.
I assumed a $65,000 employee, just pulling that completely out of the air. 0.5% on that is $325.
Okay, per year.
And
Yeah, right. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just trying to figure out how we can do both. Maybe that's the hard part, but I'm open to if we can do both.
Madam President, we'll look at a few options and provide the board a separate report on several different options that then the board can consider and see where we want to go on this.
Gotcha. The other thing's not included in the budget, and I guess it's going to be on us. we did these studies on all the other positions, but we didn't do the clerk and we didn't do our staffs. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know, I don't really care what was done in the past, but I'm uncomfortable with the chief of staffs negotiating their own potential raises. I think we should have a exec session that deals like we do with any personnel, like we're getting ready to do now. But I think all of us are concerned that they were not included in any of the, I guess, the studies you did, and we're waiting, and and it's getting late, and we need to know what the study said so we can start making some decisions. We don't want our county and our staff being underpaid, and other counties, are getting paid more.
Yeah, Madam President, so we're currently looking at some options there as well. On the board staff, the study initially did actually, there was an analysis done on those positions, and which found that from a range perspective, the positions fit within a very broad range. So it was very difficult to make a determination on that. There are so many different types of positions when you go out. These positions are so unique within the construct of the county that it's not like looking at a building plans examiner or looking at a corrections officer. Almost every county uses, in every office for that matter, uses their positions a little bit differently. So it was very difficult to make a recommendation on that. But we are, again, looking at that right now. I was just talking with Commissioner Summer Dumas about this a few minutes ago, and I would hope that this week sometime I'll be with the board offices on something that I can discuss with you, and then we can talk about if we want to work that in an executive session as it relates to compensation of employees. We can do that.
Yeah, we're running out of time. We've been asking. I mean, the clerk was left out. That's how we found out about it. But I don't know, Frank back there, we got to move quick. Frank, we can't be going at the turtle speed. We getting ready to vote on the budget. So we got to have that, and I want to have time if we do need to have the exec session. But I don't think the chiefs of staff should be, just from a perspective of it, it just doesn't look good. We should, and we can't talk to each other, so we need to have, it is an employment situation, but we can't do anything, we don't have the paperwork. So we need the paperwork like yesterday. So I just wanted to highlight that. I think we all have been talking about it for, maybe a couple weeks now. So we need to know that as we're going into this particular budget. The other thing is, in the ORC, does it say you only can have two? Is that in the state law? You only can have two people working?
Yeah, Commissioner, there is something in the Ohio Revised Code that prescribes the number and the type of staff that each commission office can have, that can be employed by the commission as a whole and then each office. So I can.
Yeah, I want to check that because I'm like, we're a big county, and you're saying if all 88 counties, a smaller county could have two, that's like us having four. So I just want to know, is that the law or is that just how we've been doing?
No, it is in the revised code, and it is not just on this issue, but the revised code does treat counties very, very, not in all cases. There are cases where it says for counties over 500,000 population, but in many cases, the revised code can be quite archaic in terms of treating urban counties similarly to their rural colleagues. So, and this is one of those cases, but we can dust off that exact language and pass it along to the board so you can see that.
Okay, I just was curious. Okay, Commissioner Dumas, you had something?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment as it relates to the chief of staff's negotiating any increase or any change in their wages. I really think that's a little unethical to involve them with any negotiation. So I wanted to make it clear whenever I meet with Jeff about that specific topic, I asked my chief of staff to leave out because it is a personnel issue, and I agree that they should not be a part of the negotiations as it relates to their salaries.
Yeah, well, let's
Yeah.
just schedule an executive session
Yeah,
next week and
the
talk
12th.
about it, I think. Yeah,
I think that's the next time we meet, so
Yeah.
the 12th, we should have.
I'm in
executive-
favor. Yep.
I think that's the best
Okay.
way to do it. And then Jeff, you should have all the paperwork, so we don't have to leave out of there with questions. We'll know the comparisons and all of the legal work we're allowed to do. Okay, so that is very important. Anything else in this budget, commissioners, that you would like to make sure that we highlight why the three of us are able to be together?
Well, I could make one comment as it relates to the veterans that I am in talks right now with, or communication, I should say, with Judge Wagner, who just returned from out of town, and he is trying to get on his schedule his ability to come in here and talk with the commissioners. The afternoons are best for him because he's in court. So we're trying to, and I even mentioned to him if he can make a phone call, do a virtual, do a recorded tape, or however he chooses, because I don't know how late the court is over. That way we can have some communication from him on his strategy and direction as it relates to the VSC. So I just wanted to let you know we should have something finalized in the next, maybe today, about his communication.
Okay. Is he the one, or is it Nestor? Which one?
It's he.
He is Wagner,
It's he.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, one other thing, as long as we're talking about veterans, there is a hearing today at the State House for House Bill 69, which is Brian Stewart's bill to say that of the 5 members of the board of the VSC, one of the members would be allowed to have served after 9/11. So it would be, I believe it's the Korean, Vietnam, and the third option for that position would be post 9/11. So it's kind of getting to the same thing that we've all been talking about, which is a different makeup for the board with the VSC to allow younger members to serve. So I've offered, as Commissioner, you know, I've offered some written testimony from my office to say, hey, supportive of that idea, a different option would be to add a couple members to the VSC to allow for 2 younger members to serve and just increase the number to 7. Don't know if that will get any traction up at the State House, but there is a hearing today about House Bill 69. And I know it's been introduced before, so I think when I talked to his office, they said there would be more hearings coming up. So just by way of information, there's something happening at the State House related to the VSCs.
Okay, thank you. And Wagner will be in to talk about appointments, right? As it stands, not about budget, right?
He'll be into,
Well, you talked about
about
that.
the status of VSC, the direction that he wants it to go. Probably, I can't say what his agenda is, but I can't limit it to just appointments. But I will talk with him today or tomorrow for sure.
I was just,
Now, if you have,
yeah, we
if you have
got an
something
email.
specific-
Yeah, we got an email basically just outlining the state law that we received from them, and saying this is how they make appointments. This is the state law. So I just want to. There's so many areas. You got appointments. You got state law. But we dealing with a budget, finance. And so I just wanted to be clear on my objection to this budget, because this same budget will give us the same results. There's no way you can do more if you got the same amount of money. So I still stand by the resolution as just a step. It doesn't stop us from talking to the judge about appointments. It doesn't stop us from, hoping that the state. This bill was introduced before. Obviously, it didn't go anywhere. Hopefully, it does go somewhere. But even with the appointments, we still got an issue about money, because they have to request more money, and not just for appointments, but for us to help more people. At the end of the day, for me, it's how do I help more people, not necessarily how do I get more people on the board. Because even if you put 2 people on the board and they've got hypothetically 8 people, you get outvoted. So I'm not against those. My position was something that we could do now, and I do think the ombudsman, I'm getting stopped everywhere. I mean, it's not popular because, of course, people that are in this room, they probably at work. But I'm getting people calling me like crazy. Like this, I don't know why we're not moving forward with not the only step, but a step. But for me, I can't vote for this section that's in this particular budget, if people can read it for themselves, we're asking for the same amount of money to do the same thing. And even with them, they got a raise, and I heard that we're getting ready to look into something, which I'm not gonna support giving them a raise, and the veterans ain't getting no raise. And that's coming up, I think, next week. I think something on the agenda about giving them, at one point, we didn't get nothing on the agenda. Now, every week we got something on the agenda, but it's always to help the board. I don't see nothing to help the veterans. What will it take to help 10% of the 42,000? I mean, what would it take? So that's where I stand, and that's where the resolution that came to me from veterans to say, hey, can you do it? And I stand by that resolution. And I'm gonna reintroduce it since it didn't get officially held in this room. I'm gonna keep introducing it, but I'm not gonna go with this budget with the same, because then that make me go silent. And I'm never going silent on these veterans. So I just wanted to bring up the budget section. I don't mind the judge coming in and everything, but he's not impacting this section. And I want to make sure that we deal with this section of the funding in addition to having the judge. I don't have a problem with that. In addition to having the judge come forward. But this section in here, that needs to also be dealt with. So I just wanted to let my colleagues know that that's something that the budget in here needs to be dealt with, and I don't know how that will impact the overall budget. But they're supposed to be able to get up to almost $10 million, and we up here with $1 million. Not to say I want to do 10 million, but that's a big gap. So I just wanted to put some focus on that particular section. Okay, I guess there's nobody. I was trying to give them more time to get up here, park their cars, and come on upstairs, but I guess they ain't gonna make this one. Meet us in Silverton, free parking. We're excited to get there. With that, we're gonna close the public hearing. I make a motion to close the budget hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Reese,
Yes.
Commissioner Dreehouse, Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Yes.
Okay, now make a motion for us to go into executive session pursuant to section 12122 to conduct a conference with an attorney for the public body on pending litigation. Also, executive session to deal with 2 collective bargaining. Is that okay? Or do I need to get more specific? 2, 3, and 4. Can I do it all together? Okay. Yep. I said that. All
Second.
right.
They have a different code? No, they should.
Commissioner Reese,
Yes.
Commissioner Dreehouse, Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Yes.